The pen was already uncapped when Kevin held it out to her. The folder was already open. The page was already turned to
Go
the
ahead and sign
signature
right here,
line.
ma'am.
I just need a
Carol
minute.
Odom had not said yes to any of it. But here was the pen, and here was
Hold your
Kevin
position.
standing beside her on the sidewalk of Pence Street
We have the
with
leverage
the
here.
patience of a man who had done this before and knew how it ended. "Just sign here, Mom," he said. "I'll handle the rest." His eyes were on the paper, not on her. Behind them, the house sat at the end of a short front walk. 2 stories of white wood gone gray at the edges, paint peeling in long strips off the siding. A corner of the roof dipping where something had given way. Crabgrass pushed up through the cracks in the front steps. One shutter on the upper window hung at a tired angle, like it had been meaning to straighten up for years and kept forgetting. A metal sign had been nailed to the gatepost by the city. Small letters. Official. Notice of Blight Classification. City of Dalton. Code Enforcement Division. The morning light came in low and flat across the roofline. It caught the old wood in a way that made the house look less like something falling apart and more like something that had simply been waiting, long past the point when waiting made sense. Carol stood on the sidewalk with the house key in her left hand. She had not brought a purse. She had not brought any paperwork. She had driven over from her place on Westbrook with just the key, thinking she would look around and decide what to do. Kevin had been there when she arrived, folder already open. She looked at the pen. She did not take it. Kevin's smile did not change. He was good at waiting. She had always known that about him. 12 years of Sunday dinners, and he had never once seemed to run out of patience. It was one of the things Tara had loved about him first. Florence Odom had lived in this house for 41 years. Carol had met her exactly twice, once as a child, once at her father's funeral. And now someone was asking her to sign her name to make it disappear. Kevin was still waiting, still smiling, still holding the pen. She did not know why her hand would not reach for it. She just knew it wouldn't. The letter from Hendricks and Associates arrived on a Tuesday, and Carol almost threw it away before she reached the second paragraph. 6 weeks before she stood on that sidewalk with Kevin holding out a pen, 6 weeks before any of it, she was sitting at her kitchen table in Dalton with a cup of tea gone cold and a medical bill from Erlanger Medical Center she had been looking at long enough that the number had stopped feeling real. The table had 2 other envelopes on it. A water bill, something from the electric company, the usual Tuesday. She opened the one from Hendricks and Associates last, the way she always saved the unfamiliar ones. Not because she expected anything, but because 40 years of habit made her cautious with things she couldn't place. Florence Odom, the letter said, decedent. Carol read it again. Florence Odom. She had to think for a moment. It took her a moment to place it. Her father's sister, his older sister, the one who had not come to family gatherings, who sent cards at Christmas with only her name signed, no message. Carol had met her twice, once as a child at some cousin's birthday, once at her father's funeral 15 years ago, standing near the back in a gray coat, leaving before the reception. Strange woman, her mother had always said, keeps to herself. The letter said Carol was the named heir to a property on Pence Street, Dalton. It said there were time-sensitive matters requiring her attention. It listed a phone number and the name of an attorney, a man called Gerald Hendricks. Carol set the letter down, picked up the envelope, checked the address, her name, her street, her zip code. Not a mistake. She stood up and walked to the trash can in the corner of the kitchen, lifted the lid. Her hand stopped, not because the letter felt important, not because she sensed anything waiting at the other end of it, just because 34 years of teaching school had left her with habits she couldn't explain and couldn't break. She had said it often enough that it had stopped being a rule and become a reflex. You don't throw away paper you haven't read to the end. She went back to the table, pressed the letter flat with the palm of her hand, not carefully, just firmly, the way you press something when you're not sure yet what it is, but you're not ready to be done with it. Then she called Tara. Tara listened, then said, "Hold on." Carol heard the phone being set down. A short exchange in another room. Voices she couldn't make out. Then Kevin came on. He had an answer ready before she finished explaining. "Mom should just let me look into it first. These things can get complicated really fast." Carol wrote the number for Hendricks and Associates on the back of the envelope, blue ballpoint, clear enough to read later. Then she carried the notice to the kitchen shelf and set it down. Right beside the medical bill, 2 pieces of paper on the same shelf. She hadn't chosen either one. One had been taking something from her over 3 months. The other, she didn't know yet what it was. She had not called Hendricks and Associates yet. But she had written down another number. Nora Beckham, from a woman at her church who had used her for a property matter 3 years ago and said she was worth calling. Carol had written it on a post-it and stuck it to the front of the counter. She had not called that one either. Carol had expected boxes. Old furniture, maybe. She had not expected the walls. 6 weeks after that Tuesday with the letter, she drove to Pence Street alone. No Kevin, no Tara. Just the key from Hendricks and Associates and a notepad she had brought to write down what was there. Some rough inventory, whatever the attorney had said she needed. She parked at the curb and stood on the sidewalk a moment. From outside, the house looked the way old houses look when no one has given up on them, but no one has gotten around to them either. Paint gone gray at the edges. A corner of the roof dipping where the wood had softened. The grass along the side fence grown high, but the front walk still holding its shape. Someone had kept it clear once, not recently, but not so long ago that the shape had disappeared. The city's blight notice was nailed to the gatepost. Small letters. Official. The kind of sign that means a decision has already been made somewhere, by someone, in a room you were not invited into. Carol climbed the 3 porch steps, unlocked the front door, and went inside. The hallway was narrow and dim. It smelled of old wood and something close. Not unpleasant. Just sealed. The way a room smells when the windows haven't been opened in a long time. Light came through the living room doorway in thin, dusty lines. She stepped through and stopped. The walls had no pictures, no family photographs, no mirrors, no calendar from a local hardware store. What they had, floor to ceiling on every side, was paper, not loose, not scattered, pinned up with care, edge to edge, in rows that ran the full length of each wall. Carol stood in the doorway and looked. Zoning maps of Dalton. She could read the title blocks from where she stood. 6 of them, from different years, 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016, 2019, 2022, pinned in order, left to right, like pages of a book someone had taken apart to read all at once. Next to the maps, printed agendas from Dalton City Council meetings, some of them marked in yellow highlighter, letters on official letterhead. She could see the return address on several of them. Crestline Development Group, dated 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. Every page pinned flat, not one corner lifting, and in the margins, handwriting. Small, dark blue ink, the kind of handwriting that didn't waste space. Third revision to the boundary line. Compare to 2016 map. Review clause 14B before responding. Call the attorney before Friday. Not notes. Instructions. Written to herself by someone who intended to follow them. She knew the zoning maps were about this house. She knew the letters from Crestline were about this house. She knew Florence had kept every one of them, had tracked every change, had written her notes in the margins and pinned them up where she could see them all together. Because you couldn't see the whole thing if you kept it in a folder. She had known. Florence had known exactly what was happening to this neighborhood and to this property, and she had documented it the way you document something you intend to fight. For 20 years. Carol walked to the nearest wall, put her hand flat against one of the Crestline letters, the most recent one, dated spring of last year. The paper was cool, the ink was clear. A few months before Florence died, she had been standing here reading this letter and writing something in the margin. They changed the boundary again. This is the fourth time. She had been fighting, alone, for 20 years. Carol stood there with her hand on the wall and did not move for a while. She had spent those same 20 years teaching third grade, going to parent conferences, making lesson plans on Sunday afternoons, living her life 2 hours north without once thinking about the woman in this house or what she was doing in it. She stayed until the light through the curtains changed color. Then she locked the front door behind her and walked back to the car. Florence Odom had spent 20 years watching, and Carol had spent 20 years not knowing there was anything to watch. The man next door was fixing a fence board when Carol came out onto the back porch, and he did not look up. She had come back the next morning with a notepad. Hendricks and Associates had asked for a rough inventory of the contents, a basic accounting of what was there. She had started in the kitchen, worked through the back bedroom, and ended up at the rear door without writing much down. There was not much to count. Florence had not accumulated things the way most people do. The man was crouched beside the low fence that divided the 2 yards, pressing a board back into place with his palm, testing it, pressing again. The kind of hands that had done this kind of work for a long time. She stood on the porch. He stayed at the fence. Nearly a minute passed. Neither of them spoke first. Then he set down his hammer, not looking up, not turning around, and said, "What are you going to do with that house?" It was not a neighborly question. It was not small talk. His voice was flat in a way that made the question feel like the only one that mattered. The kind of question a person asks when they already know which answers are wrong. Carol looked at his back. Then she said slowly, "Are you asking what I should do or what I'm planning to do?" He stopped. 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then he stood up, knocked the dirt off his knee with the back of his hand, and looked at her for the first time. Earl Dutton, she would learn. 74 years old. Lived next door to Florence Odom for 30 years. He didn't invite her in. He just walked to his back door and left it open behind him. She followed. She couldn't have said exactly why that felt like the right thing to do. It just did. His kitchen had a wooden table, 2 chairs, and a window that looked out at the fence he'd been fixing. A pot of coffee sat on the counter. He set 2 cups out without asking. He sat down and looked at his cup for a moment before he said anything. Florence didn't open the door for anybody the last 3 years. Not me either most days. But she'd leave things on the porch sometimes. Groceries she needed. A note with a question. That was her way of talking. He drank, set the cup down. 6 months before she passed, she left me something. Told me to give it to whoever came to claim the house. Said I'd know if it was the right person. Carol asked carefully, "How would you know?" Earl looked up. Wrong person would have already told me what they were planning to do with it. He got up, went to the back room, and came out carrying a cardboard box, shoebox-sized, sealed inside a plastic bag, the top knotted shut. He set it on the table in front of Carol and sat back down. Florence kept records of everything, he said. 30 years of everything. Carol looked at the box. On the outside of the plastic, fixed with a strip of tape, was a piece of paper in Florence's handwriting. The same small, dark ink she had seen in the margins on the walls. For the one who asks the right question. She had not known she was asking it. Before she left, Earl said one more thing. He said it the way people say things they have been holding for a while. Not dramatically, just because it was time. There was a man. Came 3 times in the last 8 months or so. Nice suit. Black SUV. Florence never opened the door. Last time he came, I took a picture of his plate. He pulled out an old Samsung, screen cracked in one corner, and found the photos. 3 of them. 3 different dates. The timestamps were visible. The plate was the same in all 3. He handed Carol the phone. She looked at the pictures. Then she took out her notepad and wrote down the plate number. She did not say any name out loud. Not yet. Earl put his phone away. Carol looked at the box on the table. Neither of them said anything else. That night, back at her own kitchen table, Carol looked at Nora Beckham's number. The one she had moved to the front of the counter 3 weeks ago and never called. She picked up the phone. Nora Beckham read the will 3 times before she asked anything. The second time, she turned it over to check the footnotes. The third time, she put her pencil down. Her office was on West Crawford Street, 4 blocks from the courthouse. Small enough that the 3 stacks of files on the floor made it feel smaller. A desk lamp with a bent shade throwing yellow light across everything. A framed law license on the wall. Next to it, a black and white photograph of the Whitfield County Courthouse, the old building, before it was renovated. Carol had not expected a Dalton attorney. She had expected someone from Atlanta, someone her son-in-law would have found. Nora Beckham had come from a referral, a woman at Carol's church who had used her for a property dispute 3 years ago and said she was the kind of lawyer who read things twice before she signed her name to them. 3 times, as it turned out. Florence's documents box sat on the chair beside Carol, still sealed in its plastic bag. Carol had carried it in from the car without opening it. It felt wrong to open it without someone who knew what they were looking at. Nora set the will flat on her desk and looked at Carol over the top of her glasses. Mrs. Odom, what date did you first physically enter the property on Pence Street? Not stand outside, not look through the window. Actually go inside and close the door behind you. The will said enter and take possession. Georgia courts read that as physical presence inside the property, not standing on the steps, not looking through the window. It was not the question Carol had expected. She said the date, day 58, though she did not know to count it that way. Nora turned to her computer, pulled up a calendar, counted from a date Carol did not recognize, then counted again, one finger moving across the screen. Then she sat back. This will has a condition of acceptance clause, she said. Under Georgia law, if the named heir does not physically enter and take possession of real property within 60 days of probate filing, the inheritance transfers automatically to the contingent beneficiary named in the will. Carol looked at her. 60 days from when? From the day the will was filed with the court. 3 days after Florence passed. Florence had filed a self-proved will, notarized in advance so it could move through probate without delay. Gerald Hendricks had it filed within 72 hours. Carol did the math slowly. Day 3 plus 60. The deadline, Nora said, is today. You walked into that house on day 58. You cleared it by 5 days. The room was quiet. 5 days. Carol sat with that for a moment. Not relief. Something colder than relief. She had gone to that house because she had run out of reasons not to. Because Earl had handed her a box and she hadn't known what else to do with it. Because she had finally called a number she had been moving around her kitchen counter for 3 weeks. 5 days. I want you to understand what that means, Nora said. In the 6 weeks before you went to that house, how many times did Kevin Marsh ask you to wait on something? Handle a form first. Check with someone. Give it 1 more week. Carol did not answer right away. She was counting a different way now. Week 1. Kevin said he needed to consult his own attorney before she contacted Hendricks and Associates. Week 2. The blight classification had to be understood before any other steps made sense. He'd explained it carefully over Sunday dinner. Week 3. The email with the 2-page list of things to do in order, each one depending on the one before it. Week 4. She stopped. He didn't need me to sign anything, she said. Nora looked at her and waited. He just needed me not to show up. Yes, Nora said. 1 word. Nothing after it. He didn't need her to sign anything. He just needed her not to show up. Nora opened the plastic bag and lifted the documents box onto her desk. She broke the tape carefully, the way you open something you intend to go through properly. Let's see what else she left, she said. Carol leaned forward in her chair. It was the first time in 6 weeks she had not been waiting for someone else to tell her what to do next. Nora found it by accident, the way most important things get found. She was looking for something else entirely. They had been working through the box for nearly an hour. Florence's documents were organized the way her walls had been organized, by date, by subject, each one paper-clipped to whatever it belonged with. Nora read. Carol passed pages across when asked. Outside, the afternoon had gone gray. Neither of them had thought to turn on a second light. Nora was looking for the original purchase deed when she stopped at a page near the bottom of the stack. A handwritten copy of the will, not the filed version, an earlier draft in Florence's own handwriting. She read it once, then picked up the typed version from Hendricks and Associates and read them side by side. She set both down. Who is Heartland Heritage Fund? Carol looked up. It's in the will? Contingent beneficiary. If you hadn't claimed the property within 60 days, everything would have transferred to them automatically. Nora turned to her computer, typed the name into the Georgia Secretary of State business search. The registration came back clean. Nonprofit corporation, 501c3 status, registered 2019. Listed purpose: historic preservation and architectural heritage in North Georgia communities. A legitimate address, a real filing. She typed the address into a second search. 847 West Emory Street, Suite 204, Dalton, Georgia. The second result came back in under 4 seconds. Crestline Property Holdings, LLC. Registered address: 847 West Emory Street, Suite 204, Dalton, Georgia. Nora had sent Carol home an hour earlier. There was nothing more to do while she went through the rest of the box, and the drive back would give Carol time to eat something. Nora looked at the screen for a moment. Then she picked up her phone and called Carol. Are you sitting down? Carol was sitting down. She was at her own kitchen table. Nora had sent her home an hour earlier with a copy of the documents and instructions to eat something. She put the phone on speaker and set it on the table beside the copy of Florence's will draft. Nora explained it the way she explained things, without extra words. Crestline had set up Heartland Heritage Fund in 2017, the same year Florence turned down their second offer on the house. Heartland had run real preservation projects in 3 other North Georgia towns, small ones, the kind that got a paragraph in the local paper and a photograph of someone holding a ribbon. Enough to look legitimate. Enough to have a website with testimonials and before and after pictures of restored facades. The shared address was public record, available to anyone who knew to look for it. It did not appear on the website. It did not appear in any of the brochures. It was one search deeper than most people go. Florence had gone further than most people, but not that far. She wasn't careless, Nora said. They built this for people like her. The more carefully you check, the more convincing it looks. Carol sat with that. Carol sat with that for a moment. She didn't know it was Crestline, Nora said. No, Carol said. But they knew it was her. Nora was quiet for a moment. She didn't know it was Crestline. No, Carol said. But they knew it was her. She heard Nora stop on the other end of the line. Not a long pause, just long enough to mean something. Yes, Nora said. They did. Carol looked down at the copy of Florence's notebook page that Nora had set aside for her. Florence's handwriting across the top of the Heartland entry. The same small, careful ink from the walls, from the margins of the Crestline letters. Check further before deciding. She had written that. She had meant to follow up on it. She had been keeping records on Crestline for 20 years, and she had almost caught it. Almost seen through the thing they had built specifically so that someone like her would not see through it. Florence had been careful. They had been more careful. And they had started sooner. Florence's notebook lay open on the table in front of her. Her handwriting was the same on every page. Small, deliberate, nothing wasted. Right up to the last entry. Check further before deciding. She had meant to. She just ran out of time. The woman stopped on the sidewalk the way people stop when they recognize a place, not a person. Carol was on the front walk of the Pence Street house, photographing the roofline for Nora, the damaged corner, the peeling fascia, the upper window with its heavy curtain still drawn. She had been there 40 minutes, working her way around the exterior, and the street had been empty the whole time. The woman was somewhere in her late 50s, plain clothes, small bag, hair cut short and neat. She stood at the edge of the property and looked at the house the way you look at something you have been thinking about from a distance. Not curious exactly, more like checking. She introduced herself as Diane Cho, representative of Heartland Heritage Fund, a nonprofit focused on historic preservation in North Georgia. She produced a business card and held it out. Carol took it, read the front, turned it over, blank on the back. She looked at the address on the front. 847 West Emory Street, Suite 204, Dalton, Georgia. The same address Nora had found 2 days ago in a 4-second search. Carol kept her face the way she kept it when a student gave her an answer she already knew was wrong. Patient, attentive, giving nothing away. Diane explained that Heartland had been following the property's situation for some time. That the blight classification could be challenged. They had experience with similar cases in Dalton and Calhoun. That the organization would cover all legal costs and any outstanding tax obligations. All Carol would need to do was sign a management authorization agreement, a standard document giving Heartland authority to manage the property on her behalf for 5 years. You wouldn't have to worry about any of it, Diane said. We take care of everything. That's what we do. She said it like a reassurance, like something she had said before and found that it worked. Then she added, lightly, The way you add something you want to seem like an afterthought. Miss Florence mentioned her great-niece was a school teacher. She was very proud of that. Carol looked at her. Florence mentioned that to your organization? We had several conversations with her over the years, Diane said, without missing a beat. She cared deeply about the house. Carol nodded, slowly. The way she used to nod in the classroom when she was waiting for a student to hear what they had just said. Florence had not opened her door for anyone in 3 years. Earl had said it plainly, without editorializing. Florence had left notes on the porch when she needed groceries. She had communicated by paper, at a distance, with a man who had lived next to her for 30 years. She had not been having phone conversations with a non-profit organization. Earl Dutton, the neighbor, told me Florence didn't open the door for anyone the last 3 years, Carol said. Not even people she knew. Diane did not miss her step, but she blinked, once quickly, the kind of blink that is not about light. Our conversations were mostly by phone and mail, she said. Florence preferred it that way. I see, Carol said. She did not agree. She did not push back. She asked if she could keep the card. Diane said, of course. Take all the time she needed. And then Diane walked back the way she had come, unhurried, the small bag over one shoulder. Carol watched her go. Then she turned back to the house and raised her phone. She took the photograph of the upper window she had been planning to take before Diane arrived. Then she took one more, not of the house. Diane was still visible at the far end of the block, her back to Carol, moving at the same unhurried pace. Carol photographed her. Timestamp, 9:47 a.m. Then she opened her messages, attached the photo of the business card and the photo of Diane, and sent both to Nora. No caption. Nora would know what to do with an address. The medical bill had been on the kitchen table for 11 days. The number on it had not changed. It felt heavier tonight than it had last Tuesday, though Carol could not have explained why. She had been home since 4 o'clock. She had transferred the photographs from her phone to her laptop for Nora, labeled each one by location. Roofline east corner, upper window north face, foundation crack near gatepost, and sent the folder over. She had eaten something from the refrigerator standing at the counter. She had not sat down until 8. Now the table had more on it than it used to. The photos of the Pence Street house, printed and arranged in a row. Nora's notebook, the one Carol had been keeping since the first meeting. Dates and names and times in her own handwriting. The business card from Diane Cho, placed off to one side the way you set something down when you're not ready to deal with it yet. And the bill from Erlanger Medical Center, which had not changed. Carol opened her laptop, pulled up the spreadsheet she had made 3 months ago when the bill first arrived. Savings account balance, monthly pension withdrawal, fixed expenses, the categories she had always kept clean. She updated the current month's numbers. Then she added a row she had been putting off, adding legal/ongoing, estimated 90 days. She looked at the total. Then she closed the laptop. Kevin called at 8:23. She watched his name on the screen until it stopped. He left a voicemail. She did not play it right away. She sat with the phone face down on the table for a while, and then she picked it up and pressed play. Just checking in, Mom. I know things have been stressful. The offer from the management company is still open if you change your mind. No pressure either way. No pressure. She set the phone down. The kitchen was quiet. The particular quiet of a house where one person has lived alone long enough that the silence has its own texture. Yellow light from the overhead fixture. The smell of old paper from the folder Nora had sent home with her. Copies of Florence's documents, still on the chair in the corner where she'd set them when she walked in. Outside the window, nothing. Just the dark and the sound of a car passing on Westbrook a block over. She reached for the phone again, opened her contacts. Kevin's name was near the top. Tara had added it for her 2 years ago, moved it to a position that was easy to find. She found it now. Her thumb moved to his name. Stopped. Not because of Florence, not because of Earl or Nora or anything decided or resolved, just because she remembered Diane Cho blinking. Once, fast, when asked about phone conversations with a woman who hadn't opened her door for 3 years. And Nora hadn't called back yet about the photographs. And Earl had kept that box for 6 months without opening it, without telling anyone, waiting for the right person to show up and ask the right question. She didn't have enough yet. She put the phone down, not because she was strong, because she wasn't sure enough yet. She picked up Diane Cho's business card, looked at the logo one more time, the small house illustration, the green lettering, preserving what matters, then turned it face down on the table. She opened the notebook, wrote the date, then wrote out what she remembered from the morning in the order it happened. The time Diane arrived, the words she used, the question about Florence, the blink, the address on the card, written out again even though she had already sent it to Nora. The timestamp on the photograph. She underlined the last line, closed the notebook. Then she looked out the kitchen window. Full dark. Nothing to see. But it was easier than looking at the bill. She looked out anyway, for a long time. Tara came alone, and that was the first thing Carol noticed. In 6 weeks of this, there had always been Kevin somewhere nearby. In the car, on the phone, in the answers Tara gave before Carol finished asking. Carol heard the car pull up at 9 and looked out the kitchen window before she stood. Tara's Civic. No second door opening. No Kevin walking around from the passenger side. She opened the front door before Tara reached the porch. They sat at the kitchen table the way they had sat at it for years. Carol's chair facing the window, Tara's with her back to the counter. Carol poured a second cup without asking. Tara wrapped both hands around it. They talked about the rose bush along the back fence, finally climbing the way it was supposed to. About the rain coming at the weekend. The ordinary things. The ordinary things. The things two people talk about when they know each other well enough that silence would mean something. Then Tara set her cup down and placed both hands flat on the table. Palms down, fingers together. The way you settle your hands when you have come to say something specific and you want to say it right. Kevin found an attorney, she said. Someone who specializes in estate property. He says the blight issue can be resolved in 2 weeks, maybe less. No cost to you. The attorney handles everything. You just need to sign a limited power of attorney for the property. Just for this. Carol drank from her cup. Did not answer yet. He looked into it carefully, Mom. This is the straightforward way through. Carol looked at her daughter. Tara's face was open and certain, the way it got when she had worked something out and felt good about the answer. 12 years of Sunday dinners, 12 years of Kevin explaining how things worked, the right way to refinance, the right neighborhood to buy in, the right attorney for a situation like this. Tara had learned to trust that voice. She didn't know she'd learned it. Tara continued, lower now, the way she spoke when she meant it most. Mom. Florence lived alone in that house for 40 years and didn't speak to anyone in the family. She didn't know what your life looks like now. She didn't know about the medical bills. She didn't know any of it. The wind moved through the rose bush outside. A small sound. Don't let a stranger decide what's good for you. The room was quiet after that. Carol looked at her daughter for a long moment. Tara believed it, every word of it. That was the part Carol couldn't argue with. Not yet. She didn't have enough on paper to say what she knew out loud without putting Tara in a position that wasn't fair to put her in. So she said, "I hear you." Which was true. She did hear her. She walked Tara to the door. They hugged the way they always did. One hand on the back. Brief, familiar. Tara said she'd call later. Carol said that was fine. She watched the Civic back out and turned down Westbrook. Then she went back to the kitchen and sat down in Tara's chair. The coffee cup was still there, still warm. On the table, the notebook, the photographs, the business card face down. And now, beside the notebook, a single folded document Tara had left without mentioning. The limited power of attorney, already filled in, waiting only for Carol's signature and a date. Carol looked at it, did not pick it up, did not push it aside. She uncapped her pen, opened the notebook to a new page, wrote the date. Wrote. Tara came alone. She stopped. Read that line back to herself. Then she wrote the sentence Tara had said. The last one. The one that had settled into the room and stayed. Don't let a stranger decide what's good for you. She underlined it. All of it. Not because she agreed, because she needed to remember that Tara believed it, and that believing it was not the same as it being true. The power of attorney was still on the kitchen table when Carol sat down with her notebook at 7 in the morning. She had not touched it. She had not moved it. She had just let it sit there while she made 2 columns on a clean page. The left column she headed Earl. The right column she left blank for now. Under Earl. Kevin came 3 times in the last 8 months. Black SUV, same plate each time. Florence never opened the door. Last visit, Earl photographed the plate from his back porch. 3 photographs, 3 dates, timestamps on all of them. Florence stood at the upstairs window and watched Kevin's car pull away. The right column. Nothing. Kevin had never been asked directly. Carol looked at the blank column for a moment. Then she picked up her phone. Kevin answered on the second ring. His voice had the easy, unhurried quality it always had in the mornings. The voice of someone whose day was already arranged and going according to plan. They talked for a minute, about nothing consequential. Carol thanked him for the information about the estate attorney, said she was still looking it over, that she appreciated him thinking of her. Her voice was the same voice she used at parent-teacher conferences when a parent said something she disagreed with, and she needed another 30 seconds before she responded. Then, in the middle of a sentence about nothing, she asked, "Kevin, did you ever get a chance to meet Florence? I want to make sure I have the full picture when I talk to the attorney." He answered without a pause, not a half second, not a breath. "No, Mom. I never met her. I only knew her through what Tara shared over the years. She sounded like a private person." "She was," Carol said. "Thank you, Kevin." She ended the call, looked at the notebook, wrote in the right column, Day 67, 8:52 a.m. Kevin said he never met Florence. She drew a line under it. One straight line, the way you underline something you want to be able to find again. One of them had been to that house 3 times. One of them said he had never been. Carol wrote down which one was which. She called Nora 20 minutes later. She read both columns out loud, in order, without editorializing. The dates, the times, the plate number, what Earl had said, what Kevin had just said. She read it the way she used to read attendance, plainly, because the record was the point. When she finished, Nora was quiet for a moment. I need Earl Dutton to give a notarized statement. Can you ask him? Yes. And the license plate photographs. I need copies with the timestamps visible. Yes. Carol. Yes. Don't call Kevin again about Florence. Don't mention Earl. Don't mention the photographs. Let him think this morning was routine. Carol looked at the power of attorney on the table. What about the document Tara left? Don't sign it. Don't return it. Don't throw it away. All right. A short pause. Then Nora said, We're building something. It takes a few more days. Carol set the phone down. Looked at the POA one more time. The neat typeface, the blank signature line, the date field waiting. She placed her notebook on top of it. Not to hide it. Just to set something solid over it while she got her coat. She had 2 questions for Earl. One about a notary, one about how to print photographs from a phone. He would know the answer to both. Tara needed a bank account number. That was all. Kevin's laptop was open on the desk beside her, and she had looked at his work email before without thinking twice about it. It was 8 o'clock on a Thursday. She was at the small desk in the living room, paying bills. The gas, the water, the credit card, that was always slightly more than she expected. Kevin was in the bedroom with the door pulled most of the way shut, on a video call that had been going for 40 minutes. She could hear his voice through the gap. Measured. Confident. The particular cadence he used when he was explaining something to someone who needed convincing. She had heard that voice for 12 years. She knew all its registers. She reached for his laptop to find the joint account information. His inbox was open. She had looked at his work email plenty of times, forwarding something he'd asked for, finding a confirmation number, the ordinary business of a shared life. She scrolled without thinking. The name near the top of the inbox was one she didn't recognize. D. Cho, Heartland. She clicked on it the way you click on something unfamiliar. Reflex, not intention. The thread was long. She scrolled to the bottom and began reading upward, the way you read email chains. The earliest message was from Kevin, dated 8 months ago, 3 weeks before Florence Odom died. Following up on our conversation. I can confirm the heir relationship and current contact information for the teacher. She's retired, living alone, limited financial resources. The medical situation should create enough pressure if the timeline is managed correctly. My end of this needs to clear at least $47,000 at closing. Let me know how you want to proceed. Tara read it. Read it again. Read it a 3rd time. The teacher. Not Carol. Not Mom. Not my mother-in-law. Just the teacher. A category. A variable. A piece of the problem to be managed. She scrolled up through the rest. Kevin's voice from the bedroom rose and fell, making a point. She kept reading. The teacher tends to trust family over documentation. 2 months later. The teacher won't push back if Tara is the one asking. A month after that. Once the teacher signs, the 60-day issue resolves itself. 6 weeks ago, and then 2 weeks ago, after Carol had already gone to the house on Pence Street. Situation is more complicated than anticipated. The teacher has retained counsel, proceeding with family pressure track. Tara delivered the POA as planned. As planned. Tara closed the laptop. Not hard. She just closed it, the way you close something when you are done with it. She went out the back door. Didn't take her coat. The November air in Dalton was cold enough that she felt it through her shirt immediately, but she sat down on the wooden step anyway and left the door closed behind her. The yard was dark. No lights on out here. The shape of the fence at the back. the outline of the oak they'd been meaning to trim for 2 years. From inside, through the glass of the back door, Kevin's voice continued, rising to a conclusion. Then the small sounds of wrapping up, then laughter at something. 12 years. She sat with that. Not all of it had been like this. She knew that. There had been good years, real ones, years when she hadn't had to think carefully about what she was handing over or why. But the teacher, those 2 words, were not the words of someone who loved the people in his life. They were the words of someone working a problem. And she had been part of the solution without knowing it. Tara delivered the POA as planned. The cold came through her clothes. She let it. After a while, she stood up, went back inside, and walked past the bedroom without stopping. Kevin was still talking. She got her phone from her bag, her keys from the hook by the front door, and walked out to the car. She sat in the driver's seat and pulled the door shut. The bedroom light was on. She could see it from the driveway. She called Carol, 2 rings. Then Carol's voice, careful and awake. Tara didn't have anything prepared. She said, "Mom, I need to show you something. I'm on my way." She backed out of the driveway. Kevin was still on his call when she reached the end of the street. The light in the bedroom window stayed on. She did not look back at it. The conference room had glass walls and a table polished enough that Carol could see her own hands reflected in it. Kevin's lawyer arrived first, a man named Marcus Webb, briefcase already set, jacket already buttoned. Kevin came in 2 minutes later. He was wearing a navy suit, the same color, the same cut, as the day he stood on the sidewalk of Pence Street with a folder already open and a pen already uncapped. Carol did not say anything about that. She just noticed it and set it aside. She sat next to Nora on one side of the table. Tara was not there. She had chosen not to come, not because she couldn't face it, but because she had already done her part. Nora had advised her to stay away. Her presence would invite questions about the screenshots, questions that were better left unasked, at least until Kevin's attorney had seen everything else first. The screenshots, the notarized statement, 8 pages with metadata timestamps and device confirmation. Kevin did not know she had done any of it. He had come into this room believing certain things about what was in it and what was not. Nora poured herself a glass of water from the pitcher on the table, drank some, set the glass down. Then she opened her briefcase. She was not in a hurry. Carol had noticed this about her from the beginning. Nora Beckham moved at the speed of someone who had already decided how things were going to go and saw no reason to rush toward it. Kamsuk, Yentin Nang, Kanja Dang Ninto. She placed the first document on the table and read from it without looking up. Notarized statement from Earl Dutton, resident of 412 Pence Street, Dalton. Mr. Dutton attests to observing Kevin Marsh arrive at the adjacent property on 3 separate occasions, dates documented, and being denied entry each time. Attached, 3 photographs of Mr. Marsh's vehicle license plate with timestamps. Marcus Webb leaned toward Kevin and said something quietly. Kevin did not move. The second document went down beside the first. Correspondence from Crestline Development to Florence Odom, spanning 2019 to 2023. In the March 2023 letter, Kevin Marsh is referenced as Community Liaison Contact. Miss Odom's handwritten note in the margin reads, Kevin Marsh, who is he? Connected to the family? She did not live to find her answer. Kevin looked at that page. Marcus Webb set his pen down. The third, Certificate of Formation and Registered Agent Records for Heartland Heritage Fund and Crestline Property Holdings LLC. Same registered address, 847 West Emory Street, Suite 204, Dalton, Georgia. The fourth, Screenshot compilation of email correspondence between Kevin Marsh and Diane Cho of Heartland Heritage Fund, spanning 8 months prior to Florence Odom's death. Provided voluntarily by Tara Marsh with notarized statement confirming authenticity. Kevin looked up. It was the first time he had looked up since Nora began. Carol watched him look at the fourth document and understand something that had not been in the room a moment ago. His face did not change dramatically. It was too careful for that. But something behind it was counting, and the count was not coming out right. Kam Shuk, Kang Thang Kim Swat, Dedan Kang Dung Muk. Nora let the 4 documents sit there for a moment. Then she reached into the briefcase one more time and took out a single page. A photocopy of a letter, the original creased from being folded and unfolded, with handwriting in the margin in dark blue ink. She placed it in the center of the table where everyone could see it. "Mr. Marsh," she said, "I have one question." She did not look at her notes. Florence Odom wrote something in the margin of this letter 4 months before she died. Kevin Marsh. Who is he? Connected to the family? She spent 20 years keeping records of everyone who contacted her about this property. She wrote questions about people she didn't trust. She never got the answer to this one. A pause. Not long. Just enough. I'd like to ask it for her. How long before Florence Odom passed away did Crestline Development first contact you about the Pence Street property? The room went quiet. Kevin opened his mouth. He closed it. Marcus Webb placed his hand on Kevin's arm. "We'd like to request a short recess." "Of course," Nora said. Carol looked out through the glass wall while Kevin and his attorney stepped into the hallway. Outside on the street below, people were walking to their cars with coffee cups, living ordinary Tuesday mornings. Someone checking their phone, a woman adjusting her scarf, a delivery truck idling at the corner. The ordinary weight of a day that had nothing to do with any of this. During the recess, Nora spoke to Carol quietly, without preamble. "What he did has a name in Georgia. Tortious interference with inheritance expectancy. The emails establish intent. The timeline establishes planning. And Earl's statement establishes physical presence at the property prior to Florence's death. We may not win a full judgment," Nora added, "but Kevin doesn't know that. And his attorney does." Carol nodded. She did not need to understand all of it. She needed to know it had a name, and that the name could be written on paper. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now they decide how much they want this to continue," Nora said. When Kevin and Marcus Webb came back in, they did not sit down. Marcus Webb said they were prepared to discuss resolution. Nora said she would need that in writing by the end of the week. Carol looked at the letter in the center of the table one more time before they began. Florence Odom's handwriting. Small, dark, careful. The same hand that had filled the margins of 20 years of documents. The same hand that had labeled a box for the one who asks the right question. Kevin Marsh? Who is he? Florence had asked the question 4 months before she died. Nora had just asked it again, in a room with the man it was meant for. Inside, Florence Odom's handwriting sat in the middle of a polished table, still asking a question nobody in the room had answered yet. Nora called at 20 minutes to 5. Carol was at her kitchen table with a cup of tea that had gone cold. She had not noticed it go cold. Kevin's attorney called this afternoon, Nora said. They want to settle. Carol set the cup down. Nora went through it without preamble. Crestline would withdraw its development proposal from the Pence Street area for a minimum of 3 years. The blight classification would be formally challenged. Crestline would not oppose it. Carol would retain full, unconditional ownership of the property. Heartland Heritage Fund would begin dissolution proceedings within 30 days. Not everything. Not answers to all of it. It's not everything, Nora said, as if she had heard the thought. But it's on paper, and it's yours. The paperwork took 4 more days. Carol signed on a Thursday afternoon in Nora's office. 2 witnesses present. The medical bill still in her bag from the drive over. Outside the kitchen window, the rose bush along the back fence moved in a light wind. The one Tara had mentioned the week before. The one that had finally started climbing the way it was supposed to. "Thank you, Nora," Carol said. She hung up. Sat for a while with her hands around the cold cup. Then she got up and went to the kitchen shelf. The notice from Hendricks and Associates was where it had been since the beginning. Since the Tuesday it arrived. Since the night she had almost thrown it away. Since the evening she had pressed it flat with her palm and set it beside the medical bill and gone to bed not knowing what it was. The edges were worn now, creased from being handled. She folded it along the old lines carefully, the way you fold something you have carried for a while and intend to carry a little further. She got her coat. She parked on Pence Street in the late afternoon, the light coming in low and flat across the roofline the way it had the first morning she stood on this sidewalk with Kevin beside her and a pen she would not take. Inside, the living room was the same. Florence's walls, Florence's system, the zoning maps in order, the council minutes with their yellow marks, the crestline letters running year by year from 2019 to 2023. The handwriting in the margins. Small, dark, not a word wasted. Carol stood in the middle of the room and looked at the walls for a moment. Then she found the space she had noticed on her first visit. A small gap between a crestline letter from 2021 and one from 2022, just wide enough for one more page. She pinned the notice there. It sat between the 2 letters, the way something sits when it belongs somewhere. Not prominent, not small, just present. The edges were soft from handling. The crease from her palm was still in it. It had been almost thrown away on a Tuesday in October. And now it was here, on this wall, next to 20 years of a woman's work. The room stayed quiet. There was nothing to say about it. Carol walked back through the hallway and out the front door. She pulled it closed behind her, did not lock it. The key stayed in the lock. The afternoon was going. The light on the roofline had turned from flat to amber. Somewhere on Crawford Street, a car passed and faded. She stood on the porch, the same 3 wooden steps, the same gate post with the city's blight notice nailed to it, the paperwork for the challenge not yet filed, still a few weeks away, the sign still saying what it had said since before she came. The same view down Pence Street in both directions. No folder, no pen, no one standing beside her needing something from her. Just the afternoon and the house at her back. She stood there for a moment, not long, and then she walked down the 3 steps and across the front walk to her car. Florence could not stay, so she left something better than a warning. She left Carol time enough to find her own way in. Carol did not look back. The house knew what it was now. So did she. If this story stayed with you, leave a like so more people can find it. And tell me in the comments, if you were Carol that morning, would you have signed that paper?